Thank you, Sojourner, for that wonderful centering music. I needed it a lot this morning, so thank you. And we need to do something about our feedback, because I don't think we need that. There we go. So, say with as much energy as I can muster this morning, good morning. Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Society of Bangor. My name is Reverend Drew Moeller. I use he, him pronouns, and we are so glad that you are joining us today. Kind of a heavy Sunday after a heavy week. We also want to welcome those who are joining us online today. We are so glad that you are making a connection through the internet. This is definitely a time to be together in community. For those of you who are joining, and I'm seeing a lot of visitor name tags today, I want to extend a special welcome and invite you to come and join us for coffee and conversation after the service. And also let you know that right after the announcements, we will provide an opportunity, if you so choose, to introduce yourselves. Just your name and what brings you in this morning is all you need to say. It doesn't have to be much. But it's optional, so if you feel comfortable doing that, we'll provide that opportunity. We'll bring a microphone to you, and if you wish to remain anonymous or just chill, you can do that here. So with that said, I'm going to invite Phyllis, our worship associate this morning, to offer our announcements.
I'll make this very brief. At 11:30 today, you actually have an option of two choices to participate in. The first one is the Worship Lab, which will be in Reverend Drew's office at 11:30, which is to discuss something that's near and dear to the worship committee's hearts, which is creating new visions for and ideas and themes for worship over this next year. Many of you had given some ideas from the survey that went out, and it gives you an opportunity to come forth, and Drew's got a very active whiteboard going on in his office, so hopefully you can join and have a chat about worship. Also at 11:30 is the Spirit of Drumming, and those of us who participate in drumming twice a month know how important just beating those drums can be. Today will be one of those days. On your order of service, you'll see that this coming Saturday is our annual fall cleanup. If you haven't gotten something else planned, it may or may not be slightly rainy, but boy, do we need a little sprucing up on the outside and some help doing things on the inside. So please check on that. Two other things that I'm just going to mention: the wreath sale. Wendy Erickson, where is she? Well, she was here. Maybe she's still ironing. I don't know. She is the contact person for saying if you wanted to order a wreath and pay her for that. The wreath elves will be putting them together on Saturday, December 7th, like we do every first Saturday. Cash or check only. They're a little bit more expensive this year. I think they're $27 each. And you can also get them undecorated like I do, and then I take them home and decorate them myself. And last, the gift basket auction, which is the second Saturday of December. Kathy Elliott wants your theme by the 25th, okay, not the 18th. So if you have a basket you're putting together for yourself personally or one of your committee groups, you can let Kathy know if she doesn't know already. And then a photo of the contents of the basket, potentially the value, and the list of the contents needs to be to Kathy by December 2nd. Is that right? Okay, anyway, so make that happen relatively soon, because Kathy is our wonderful doyen, whatever, of the PowerPoint presentations for the basket auction, which we do on Zoom every year, and it's a lot of fun. So look forward to that. And I think That's it for today.
So remember that promise of an opportunity to introduce yourselves? Now's the time. If you just raise your hand, John here will bring a microphone to you. Anyone wish to introduce themselves? Great. We've got a couple people here.
Testing. There you go. My family brought me along. I'm Brian. This is my grandpa, Adolf. It's lovely to be here and meet all of you. Yeah.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Diane. I'm new to the area, living in Orono. I was a performing musician at one of the two UU churches in Portland for several years, so I'm interested in the drumming circle. If somebody could point me in that direction afterwards. I brought a hand drum with me, but I promised not to play it during the service. Thank you.
Welcome. Anyone else? Okay. Oh, one more or two more.
Good morning. My name is Kathleen, and I'm looking for more sense of community, particularly after the election.
Yeah.
Good morning, I'm Lynn Hunter with Kathleen, and ditto.
Well, welcome. We're glad that you are joining us today. Yeah. Okay, so I have some words for centering here. These words are by a poet, a Somali-British poet, Warshan Shine, who wrote these words in 2016 after some violence against Muslims in Paris, and at the same time some bombings that were happening in Beirut. It's a little heavy, but I think it captures what we are all experiencing right now. They set my aunt's house on fire, and I cried the way women do on TV, folding at the middle like a 5-pound note. I called the boy who used to love me and tried to okay my voice. I said hello. He said, Warshan, what's wrong? What's happening? I've been praying, and these are what my prayers look like. Dear God, I come from two countries. One is thirsty and the other is on fire. Both need water. Later that night, I held an atlas in my lap and ran my fingers across the whole world and whispered to myself, where does it hurt? It answered, everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. We'll now receive our morning introit.
Lighting our chalice this morning will be Tracy Haskell. And Tracy, at the end of my reading, if you'll pause for a minute, and then I'll pass it over to Reverend Drew so you can light the lotus candle when he reads. Okay. Welcome, you who come in need of healing, you who are confused or have been betrayed. Welcome with your problems and your pain. Welcome to your joys and your wonderings. Welcome, you need to hope, you're longing for assurance instead of answers. Here may you find safety for your questions. Instead of promises, may you find community for your struggles. People with hands and hearts to join you in engaging the challenges and changes of our day. Blessed be.
I also want to hold space today for Veterans Day to remind us of the people who have served and continue to serve our country. These words by Cynthia Landrum. In honor of those who have served and those who continue to serve, at home and abroad, for peace and in war, we light our chalice and we offer our gratitude. I now invite you to join in singing our opening hymn, 1002, Comfort Me, and I'm going to invite you to remain seated. We're going to sing 3 verses and the words will appear magically on the screen. Now I'd like to invite our young people of any age, people young at heart, to come forward for our Story for All Ages. Here. Right there. Yep. Yeah. So we've got the average age of our young people has gone up a little bit this Sunday. Time for an intergenerational service, but I think some people are staying home today. We may have noticed that grown-ups have been a little quiet and acting a little unusual this week. I think there's a lot going on for them, and it doesn't mean that things aren't okay. Things are okay, but there's some things that have happened this week, this election that has kind of turned out in an unexpected way that is leaving people kind of sad. And this story is a little bit about how can we be with people who, when they're experiencing frustration and sadness. You may have heard this story before. It's become one of my favorites. It relates a lot, I think, to Buddhist meditation practice. So, ready for the slides? There we go. One day, Taylor decided to build something new, something special. And you can see the pictures here or on the screen. Yeah. Something amazing. Taylor was so proud. But then, out of nowhere, things came crashing down. The chicken was the first to notice. Cluck, cluck! What a shame! I'm so sorry this happened. Let's talk. Cluck, cluck. But Taylor didn't feel like talking, and so the chicken left. Next came the bear. Gar, rar, rar! How horrible! I bet you feel so angry. Let's shout about it. Gar, rar, rar. But Taylor didn't feel like shouting, and so the bear left. The elephant knew just what to do. Trumpeta, I can fix this. We just need to remember exactly the way things were. But Taylor didn't feel like remembering either, and so the elephant left. One by one they came. The hyena, let's just laugh about it. The ostrich, let's hide and pretend it didn't happen. The kangaroo, tisk, tisk, what a mess. Let's just throw everything away. And the snake, let's go knock down someone else's. But Taylor didn't feel like doing anything with anybody. And so eventually they all left until Taylor was alone. In the quiet, Taylor didn't even notice the rabbit. It moved closer and closer until Taylor could feel its warm body. Together they sat in silence until Taylor said, "Please stay with me." The rabbit listened. The rabbit listened as Taylor talked. The rabbit listened as Taylor shouted. The rabbit listened as Taylor remembered and laughed and listened to Taylor's plans to hide and to throw everything away and to ruin things for someone else's. Through it all, the rabbit never left. And when the time was right, the rabbit listened to Taylor's plans to build again. "I can't wait," Taylor said. "It's going to be Amazing. Yeah, yeah. So I like that story because sometimes when we're feeling blue and we're feeling sad, we don't want to talk, we don't want to laugh, we don't want to do a lot of things. And I think sometimes, especially for young people, it's kind of hard to see somebody that you love, being sad, and we don't know what to do. And sometimes I think just being able to be together and not necessarily having to talk or having to say anything, but just being there like the rabbit, just snuggling up like you're snuggling up right now.
Yeah, and speaking of rabbits, I actually have one at my dad's.
You've got a rabbit at your dad's house. Well, that's cool. So you can really relate to that story and relate to how rabbits are kind of a little shy that way, but helpful. Yeah. Yeah.
And we actually have a puppy in the car.
You've got a puppy waiting for you in the car, too. Okay. You are an animal lover. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Emma, for your words of wisdom.
And also, I'm not the same Emma that wrote there.
You found your name on the rug here, so you're a different Emma. Okay. So maybe at some point you can add your name to that. That would be cool. All right. So let's sing our young people of all ages back to their seats as we continue on with our story, our time. Stay now in peace, may the light of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may So now is the time in our service when we pause for a few moments to share the joys and sorrows that weigh on our hearts or bring us such joy that we can't contain it within. This is a special sacred time, a time for deep listening and a time for deep sharing. If you have a joy or a sorrow that you wish to share with this beloved community, I invite you, if you're in the sanctuary, to come forward at this time and form a line here. And if you're joining us online, we ask that you type your joy or sorrow into the chat, and Phyllis will read that joy or sorrow for you, and I will light a candle. Please come forward or type into the chat. Please join me in the spirit of meditation and prayer. Great universal spirit, interconnected web of which you are part, we gather in this time and place to hold up the joys and sorrows that are amongst our people here in the sanctuary, those online, and those who touch our lives. Today we hold the heaviness and sadness of an election outcome that didn't go the way that we had wanted it to, and the fear of the things that might bring. We also hold in our hearts loved ones who are sick, loved ones who have had accidents over the course of this last week, people who are healing, and people in our midst who are struggling for health. Spirit, we also give thanks for prophetic voices, of poems that give us encouragement, of a blessed community that helps hold us and support us through these challenging times, and for the reminder that there is joy also in the world, in the beautiful day, in people's faces, in beloved communities of people gathering together, gay and straight, lesbians, who help hold and support. And for the joy of grandchildren getting excited about upcoming visits. Spirit, we gather in this time and place because we know that each life tells an important story, and each life holds a deep and abiding truth. We know that by coming together and sharing our joys and sorrows with each other, our burdens become less, our joys become greater, and we grow closer to becoming one. Blessed be. Amen.
Hello, thank you. This is the time in our service where we do find ways monetarily to nourish this community and also to give our undesignated cash to the plate for the Penquist Fuel Assistance Program, which is the home energy assistance program called LIHEAP. Your help will also nourish and warm other households.
It is with gratitude that we receive this morning's offering to help the Penquist Heating Oil support program and for the support of this beloved community. Thank you.
Our reading this morning is by Reverend Steve Garnes Holmes. Breathe, brush your teeth, lament. Lament. Our sickness is greater than we let ourselves think. Our wound more profound. But so is our love. Our grief and even despair are the work of the holy in us. Let your body feel your rage. Let your voice find your sorrow. Let the river flow. We are not called to end the winter, but to bear the light that will become the spring. The mending of the world is threaded with simple kindness and courage. Even as the cold descends, we can love. We can love. Blessed be.
one. Mhm. As you know, there are times when I just feel like the pulpit is too far away from you. And so I decided that I wanted to deliver my words today from the floor. And also prepare anybody who is young at heart a little bit later in my words. I'm going to invite people to come forward because I've got a little thing that I'm hoping our young people can help us with a little bit. Like many of you, I have spent the last week in shock and disbelief about the outcome of the last national election. For weeks, we have been watching the election predictions that were leaving us somewhat hopeful that the candidate that I think many of us were rooting for, who talked about unifying the country, working together, and caring for the least vulnerable in our country, who spoke about the importance of caring for our environment and caring for immigrants. We were excited as we watched her numbers surge in the polls. We also felt hope as the other leading candidate became more and more unhinged and was ending their campaign speeches with rhetoric that seemed to indicate that this person was not ready to serve. And we hoped that those crazy words that were coming out of his mouth would turn people away from voting for him. We endured those rants, hoping that people would change their minds. As the vote tallies came in Tuesday night, instead of having the close race that we were expecting, the candidate that we feared might win did so by an unexpectedly large margin. All the hopes that we had for our country moving forward and justice for all and a focus on what we could accomplish together as people and community were dashed. This was a sharp contrast to the feelings of nostalgia that I felt on Tuesday when I worked the polls and I saw people from all walks of life making their way to the polls to cast their votes. There were first-time voters, long-time voters. Many young parents came to vote with their children in their arms and strollers. I saw people of all ages, gay, straight, transgender, queer, old, all acting on their exercise to vote. There were people dressed in professional attire and people in pajamas. There were many veterans who came with baseball caps emblazoned with the units that they had served and the places that they had served, fighting for our sacred democratic right to vote. There were also many elderly people who showed up, people who needed extra support to be able to get to the polling place. It's quite a long distance in the Cross Center to get from the entrance to the polls. But they were determined and impressive. One centenarian brought 2 people with her to help her support her through that whole voting process. When I thanked her for coming out to vote, she says, "As long as I am living, I will vote." In the afternoon, as I worked as a poll chaplain, greeting people as they arrived to vote and to monitor the outdoor scene to make sure that nobody felt afraid, intimidated, or harassed as they entered the polls. I think probably the most gratifying moment in that afternoon shift was helping an immigrant couple find their way to the voter registration table so they could register to vote for the first time as American citizens. However, that warm, nostalgic feeling was short-lived as I watched the polls Tuesday night in the ED with Pat. The close race that we had expected did not happen, and almost instantaneously the polls started going in the opposite direction. How could we have gotten things so wrong? What was happening? It's not like people didn't know who they're voting for. As the electoral college numbers came in, it became clear that the candidate of hope, inclusion, and collective prosperity was not going to win. Then in the morning we learned that not only had we lost the electoral college, but also the popular vote, and that the voter turnout was low compared to the last presidential elections, that Trump was elected with fewer votes than he was elected to initially in 2016. As the reality of election results unfolded, the heaviness and the dread filled many of our hearts. How could this be? It's natural to feel a range of emotions in the wake of such unexpected election results: shock, disappointment, anxiety, fear, and the frustration that we all have found its way into our hearts. And when I tried to sit in meditation with those feelings, I noticed how much my body just ached. Where did it hurt? Everywhere. I understand and share those feelings with you. I felt a little bit like our friend Taylor in our story for all ages, when everything came crashing down, and I wonder if that's a little bit how Kamala Harris feels. We have worked such a long time to create a better world that is more amazing, only to have our hopes and dreams come crashing down in one night in a crucial election. Like Taylor, many of us are grappling with those unexpected emotions that came out that night and in the week that has followed. It is crucial that we take time to process those feelings. And, like the rabbit in the story, I think it's important that we be kind and gentle to each other as we navigate those fears and emotions, to spend some time engaging in self-care. This is a necessity in these times, not an option. This week, I had more pastoral conversations with people in this community than I sometimes have in a month. There are a lot of people who are hurting right now. I have heard people contemplating what it would be like to leave this country and move to another place. I've talked to people who are intensely fearful of the president-elect and afraid for their own safety. There are people who are fearful that the followers of Trump will get wound up and emboldened and expand the amount of hate crimes that are happening, that have been happening in our community, from anti-Semitism to gay bashing to harm against immigrants. Unfortunately, I feel that some of the campaign rhetoric that has been shed on both sides have led us believe, even for only a moment, that the world will come to an end because of the results of the election. But I am not sure that I'm willing to give that assumption that much power. And I know that we have been in many, many difficult places as a nation and communities before: the Civil War, the Civil Rights Movement, the Vietnam War protests, and many other situations where people thought the world was coming to an end, and it didn't. Still, I believe that there is some hard traveling that we are going to be experiencing in the next 4 years, in which many of us which in many ways has made this congregation even more important and valuable. If we were in the stock market, our stock probably just went up about 1,000%. Because while it is essential that in these times that we let the world know, not just our community, but we let the broader world know that there is a place here in Bangor that they can come, they can be safe, they can be themselves, and they will be welcomed, they will be supported, they will be safe. And I think that that's something that we really need to maybe pay some attention to in the coming weeks ahead, that this is a time when it feels like we want to turn inward, and I think this is a time that we need to turn outward. Part of the work of doing this, sitting with our emotions and trying to understand what is going on, once we get past the understanding or being comfortable with what we're feeling and it starts to soften and to dissipate a little bit, is then the time to remind ourselves of the resources that we have. That there are, I have to say, there's about 10 times this week I said, I am so glad that I am here in Bangor as all this craziness is kind of unfolding, that we don't know. There's a way that being able to be aware of our resources also helps us soften the anxiety that we have of what might happen, right? And remind ourselves, like, we don't know what's going to happen, so let's plug into what we can do here in our community, here in our own hearts, and be able to start moving forward to work together. So what are some of the things that you can think of are resources that we have as individuals and as a community? Anybody? John, I'm going to ask you to take the microphone around to people as they share. Because John doesn't get enough exercise. Anybody?
We have each other in this community, and we know we're safe amongst each other, and we just need to keep remembering that and showing up and listening and sharing.
Mm-hmm. Just simply random acts of kindness. Just be
Random acts of
the best
kindness.
person you can be.
Mm-hmm. Make sure we speak up, because everybody wants to hear your words of encouragement. Anybody else? Choir. Yeah.
We shouldn't only write to our politically minded, like us, friends. We need to write to and hope there will be some moderation in the Republicans getting back to more social responsibility than what they have recently. Let's just pray for a reawakening of the oath to the Constitution.
Okay. Anyone else? Evan in the back there, and then we'll move on.
We have music. Music is a great place for common ground and a lot of comfort.
Amen. Yeah. And we've got, I know there's a lot of people with spiritual practices of singing, Women with Wings. Joni.
We have the Peace and Justice Center, which tomorrow afternoon at 3:30 is co-sponsoring with the Wilson Center a post-election community care forum. If anybody doesn't know where the Wilson Center is, it's in Orono on College Avenue. It's the building, it's the big A-frame building.
Yeah, so we've got partners. We've got other people who are not part of our community, but are have some similar values that we do. I think we also, some of the tools that we have are, the resources that we have is our faith, our principles, prayer, spiritual practices, that people have a variety of spiritual practices in our community. Suzanne's got another one.
Just try not to think of ourselves as being part of separate tribes,
Yeah,
but
think
the
of
common
ourselves.
humanity that we have,
Yeah,
and reach out to people who we might ordinarily not reach out to.
right, right. And as that poem that you read earlier reminded us, is, you know, we still have our integrity of being able to focus on, we're all in this together. It's not a them and us, it's all of us together. Okay, is there one more? And then I'm going to ask our young people to come forward.
We have our community gardens, and we have our food that we share with one another, and that may become very important in coming times of scarcity. And yeah, God forbid it comes to violence. We have each other to protect ourselves, and hopefully some of us will be armed. At least I hope.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask anybody who's young at heart who wants to come forward to help out with this last little section. I mean, you're welcome to come if you want. You can bring your mom too if you want. Would you like to come up and help with something? Okay. You come right up here, right up here. So John, I'll grab the microphone now so I can share it. And I want you to come right behind this table here. Okay, so I want you to take this blanket off this thing here and tell me what you found there. A box. What is it? What kind of a box? You can open it up. A box of tools, yeah. I'm going to move this a little bit so we don't crush our flowers too much. So, want to pick up a couple of those tools and show people what kinds of things we've got in there? Hold it up, a screwdriver, needle nose pliers, right? Little wire cutters, nippers. Yeah. Big screwdrivers. A scraper. All sorts of good things. A fid for splicing rope.
It's a little heavy.
Yeah, it's for splicing big rope. Yeah. Wrenches, right? Yeah. So I wanted to do this, have this come up so we get a chance to kind of think a little bit about, as we're moving through that space of thinking about how we're going to deal with all of this. I think before we start just trying to jump in and create action, a good exercise is to pause for a moment and think about what kind of tools we have in our toolbox as individuals, as community, and finding ways to, one of the things I find often when I'm working on things with tools is that I often don't have the tool that would be just the perfect thing, right, to get things done.
Hang on.
But then I ask my neighbors, or I get creative and I find another way to go about doing and accomplishing the same job with the tools that I do have. And I think that that's going to be the challenge for us in the next 4 years of working and building. And these are things that can't be taken away from us, and we will continue to do to make the world better, even in these uncertain times. So, Emma, you've got a bunch of things there that you're.
But I found two wrenches, but this one is different.
Yeah, it's different. It's got a box, what they call a box end on it.
Oh.
Yeah, cool.
Wait, is there another layer?
There's another layer there. There's another lesson there from our young people. There's all kinds of layers sometimes to the tools that we have, and it takes time to reflect, because often we forget of the tools that we have stored away. Yeah. Okay. I'll set that down. You can keep looking through that if you want to, but I'm going to keep things moving along a little bit. As I sum up my message to you, of one, being able to hold our sadness and our grief and whatever other feelings we might be experiencing in this time, let us provide space to do that, and let us also pause and remind ourselves of what tools we do have to be able to move forward into a new paradigm, unknown. Let's be mindful not to anticipate and expect that a certain outcome is going to happen. Let us just respond to what is happening in the moment and continue to look for ways to build a little bit for the future, but not get caught up in anticipatory grief or expectation that might shut us down. And to end, I end with one of the great spiritual teachers of all time, Mahatma Gandhi, who said, "Remember that through all history, there have been tyrants, there have been murderers, and for a time they seem invincible. But in the end, they all fall. Always." Blessed be. Amen. I now invite you to rise in body or in spirit to sing our closing hymn. You can keep going through that if you want to. It's fun. Emma, thank you for your help. Let's kind of give a shake to thank Emma for her participation today. Thank you for rolling with that. I felt like we needed to sing all 5 verses today because, as Evan reminded us, we need to sing, we need music at this time. As we extinguish our Unitarian Universalist chalice flame, symbol of faith, hope, love, connection, and the values that lead to better living for all people, Let us be reminded that although our time of worship has come to an end, our service to the world and the community at large has just begun. Blessed be. Emma, would you like to blow out our candle today? Thank you. I now invite you to join in singing our benediction.